and make us laugh. So thank you, President. So we have 10 hours behind us, and we will now have this final roundtable where you can ask away anything you want to today's speakers before the city mayor gives the final word. So now we will be listening to all in-person speakers. We will have Julián Monedero, Julián Sastre, Julio Lumbreras, and Alfonso Vegara. And for those of you who have any questions, raise your hand and we will bring a mic. What we all want is friendlier cities, cozier cities. And we wonder how we're going to, if we're moving towards that. So there's one question, there's another. 3 and 4. So 4 questions, and that's it. Okay? And then we will have some final words by the city mayor. Hello, good afternoon. I wanted to ask Julián Monedero. I'm quite astonished with the piece of information you shared that Tenerife, by covering or with solar panels, its houses, we would be able to cover the electrical demand of the island. I'm surprised by that study, as according to the vice chancellor from this government and the previous government, we're working on the sustainable transition. And in order to decarbonize our island, we wanted to repurpose land or soil. In the case of Tenerife, it was quite an astonishing proposal, because it would cover around 100% of our land, and there would be some real competition between agriculture and renewable energy. So I would like to know more about what you just stated, about that information you shared with us. We also have these SAR regions by the government, these renewable energy zones in Spain. So my question is it true what you just shared? That would be the first question. And the second question, in case it is, how can we put those solar panels up there? Well, that study is an academic study carried out by the current, by Julieta. I've known her for a while now. She's the vice chancellor of energy for the transition here in the Canary Islands and Gran Canaria. And she has studied the cases both of Gran Canaria as well as Tenerife. Physically, it is possible because they fit. They have the space needed for that. However, I'm not meaning to imply that we have to do everything with photovoltaics. If we would need to cover additional soil or land, we have right now infrastructure in the island that would be enough to reach a high level of renewable energy sources within the island. Photovoltaics is a very interesting one. That's why I'm mentioning that one more than any others, because it's a lower cost or a higher energy income. So yes, it's possible. We can't interpret comments off the mic.
Ahora se pasa palabra, ¿no? Más preguntas.
More questions.
Vale. Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I have 2 questions, but I also have to ask you. The Mueve Foundation spokesperson, I want to ask her that along the way, in the autumn of 2027, we could revisit some of this so that we would have a critical analysis of what we've been able to achieve until then. Some of us have been working for many years on this topic, and we are well aware of what has happened on the past 4 decades in Tenerife and Santa Cruz. We're quite critical with the sense of time.
Que se celebre otra vez porque,
We would like to have another
yo
edition.
Recordar y en los últimos, desde los años 80,
Since the 80s, the architectural school that brought Boigas,
no recordaba un evento con gente de tanto
that
nivel.
was last time I remembered having such a high-profile meeting,
reunir una
to have
de expertos tan cualificados.
all these experts, very qualified experts here with us. It's a real honor to feel this critical analysis happening would be, of course, very important. You shared a slide about las Teresitas, and some of you might remember that in the 80s, there was a Dominique Perrault who won that construction plan on las Teresitas. However, we haven't been able to carry out any reforms in that regard. And with the two towers of Camboyanos, you could see the sea, and at the beginning of the 2000s, there was a square, and there was an architectural competition. Someone won it, but we need to be autocritical, because in 2026, they said that finally they would be renewing that square in Camboyanos. I would like to know about the opinion of José Moyescaya, who's the one who is probably more familiar with more recent developments in the city of Santa Cruz. Paolo also mentioned the example of Bilbao. What can we do before we reach 2030? And that second question would be about the city council. There is an important battle they're fighting right now. In the past 3-4 years, they've been able to jump forward regarding mobility by incorporating this low emission zone, bike lanes, regulated parking spots. Only a few of those who visit us know that Santa Cruz is one of the few places in Spain where you can park free of cost without paying on the road, public roads. Right now in Spain, there are some initiatives relating to how provinces, municipalities relate to each other on working on a legal framework. Santa Cruz can't continue with the current situation of blockage to blocking, for example, the regulation of apartments. So it would be great to have an initiative that would support the city council in this regard. Thank you for your question. And who will be answering that one, José María?
¿De ustedes? ¿Quién? ¿De ustedes? El que quiera, ¿eh?
You? Who wants to answer? Who do you want to ask this question to?
El guante y a ver si entendí bien la...
¿Tienes clara la pregunta? Porque si no la repetimos, pero breve, por favor.
Okay, I will try to... I don't know if I understood it. Could you repeat the question? But it's being repeated off the mic. Apologies, we can't interpret it. So what we have to do is not to stop to think. That's not the only thing we need to do. We have these opportunity windows. In spite of that anomaly of Santa Cruz losing population, which really caught my attention when I looked at demographic data, the truth is that we have to prepare the land through urban regeneration, or this housing emergency will get worse. It's not only about a quantitative measure, but also a qualitative one that's affecting specifically the youth. People looking into creating a home, building a home. So we need to continue talking about it. It needs to be an active topic, and we need to take further steps in order to solve it. Now, these framework parameters for while taking action, which we mentioned on the break, are needed. But conferences such as this one come to show that the best way to answer the situation is that we need values. As a society as a whole, need to first establish values, the principles that are the foundation, that lay the foundation of our work. We spoke about the financial aspects. In fact, we should speak about economic viability. We have spoken about many topics: the defense of the shorelines, satisfying housing needs. We can't build a neighborhood which is isolated, but there need to be some sort of connection, as Alfonso said, a hybrid neighborhood, a hybrid relation. So in my perspective, we can't leave any of those aspects behind. Now, parting from that foundation, we then can create the different scenarios and legal tools needed to carry out these projects. We have different autonomous communities, regions in Spain that have regional departments, entities responsible for this scale of projects. Others don't. Others need to be carried out by municipalities, have to then change the plan. They would be reviewing the plan to size it down to their needs. But in any case, we need to continue moving forward. I agree with what you stated at the beginning. We have already mentioned these attracting talent, these talent magnets. And Santa Cruz is being an example of that right now. You are leaders at a very high-profile professional meeting that cannot be found in many other places. This sort of conferences don't happen often nor frequently due to agendas being too full or due to other aspects. It's a very interesting event. We have mentioned many topics that usually aren't there for entertainment purposes. We have had a good time. Some speakers have highlighted how we have to really take these words seriously. These are not marketing concepts, no branding concepts. We need to back all actions with data. If not, it will lead to confusion, to losing trust. We need to seize these circumstances and continue moving forward along this path. We need to start by working on the values. And later on, we will focus on how we build up from there. We need to look at economic viability and legal viability. Without it, it won't be feasible. You need to understand, if something is economically viable, that doesn't mean that we will be making it happen. It's just an aspect we need to take into account, and apologies if I've taken too much of your time. I also want to thank Inés Sánchez de Madariaga, who's joining us from Boston, who has been following us by streaming. And we're really thankful for her being this present. And she's also here in case you want to ask her any questions. Are there any other questions?
Sí les pido de verdad un poquito de brevedad en la pregunta o concreción. Sí les pido de verdad un poquito de brevedad en la pregunta o concreción y en la respuesta.
Please be brief as possible in both your question and answers. A very specific question then.
Por la electrificación de la movilidad urbana y de otras
talked about the potential demands of the future in terms of buildings and communication networks. Here in the Canary Islands, the 2012 decree
la generación con mecanismos
has
antivertido para no
had
incurrir en ese
implications
problema, digamos, económico.
for
Desde ese punto de vista, la pregunta concreta es, y soy breve, ¿hasta qué punto,
specific
porque no lo he oído
projects?
hablar este término, hemos hablado de palabras, como ha dicho el señor
My
Ezquerra, y las palabras
specific
son importantes, estoy
question
muy de acuerdo con él,
then.
pero se coordinan con una palabra que yo no la escucho en
We've
toda la
heard
presentación,
some
que es
key
la red de
words
distribución
today,
eléctrica y cómo
but there
se
is one word that I
gestiona,
haven't heard,
y
and that
muchos
is the
técnicos conocemos de las posibles
electricity
problemáticas que
distribution
podría tener,
network and
hasta qué
how
punto
it's
se diseña el urbanismo
managed.
teniendo en cuenta la evolución necesaria, sobre todo a nivel de términos de principio de
How
potencia
much
de la red de
do
distribución eléctrica. Esa
urban
es la pregunta.
plans take into
Nombro al señor
account
Ezquerra, que
the
sé que sabe de esto un montón,
potential
pero también los otros señores que están aquí, pues, si nos aportan. Muchas
of
gracias.
the power grid that we have?
¿Quién?
Thank
Pues,
you.
efectivamente, es importante, digamos, que toda esta evolución que tiene que seguir la ciudad
Yes, you're
vaya
quite right.
acompañado de las
All
infraestructuras,
of
en este caso
these
de las redes de distribución y de
city
transporte
developments
también,
need to
por
have
supuesto, pero
developments
especialmente las
in
de
the
distribución.
infrastructure, both
Y
electricity supply
efectivamente,
and transport.
la mayor penetración de
When it comes
renovables,
to
especialmente
this
renovables eléctricas,
electricity supply,
conlleva que esas infraestructuras se desarrollen. O sea, es que no hay otra. Pero hay que
renewables
cambiar muchas cosas. Es decir,
rely on
actualmente, por
the
ejemplo,
expansion
las
of this
políticas
power
europeas
grid.
encaminadas a lo que
But
son
a lot
comunidades
needs
energéticas
to
permiten
change. Right
que las
now,
comunidades energéticas o
European
las comunidades ciudadanas de
policies
energía
towards
desarrollen sus propias redes de
energy
distribución, que los
communities
ayuntamientos desarrollen sus propias
allow
redes de distribución. Entonces,
for communities
quizás
develop their
es el
own
momento de empezar a
distribution
plantear este
networks,
tipo
for
de
city
cambios,
councils develop their
pero que vienen
own
de una necesidad.
distribution
Es decir,
networks. So it's
el desarrollo
perhaps the
también de la
moment
movilidad
to
eléctrica
consider this
necesita
now.
también una mayor inversión en infraestructura
Development of
eléctrica en las ciudades.
electric mobility also
No queda otra,
requires more
pero vamos,
investment in
habrá que
electric
poner, digamos, los
infrastructure in
elementos
cities. That's
que
obvious.
permitan esa transformación en las ciudades también.
What we need is to put in place all of the elements that will allow for this
Bueno, el Rosario
transformation.
fallido no es porque
The
es
interpreters
un proyecto
can't
que
hear the
está
question.
actualmente caminando, y además en el Rosario se ha hecho
I
una
think you're
cuestión desde el punto de vista
mentioning the
bastante
Rosario
inteligente, y es que
project,
se ha
which has
aprovechado
had
que
some
se ha
problems,
levantado todo el polígono
but
para
they have
introducir pues
done
conexiones
something
adicionales para potenciales
quite
de distribución
interesting.
adicionales
They've
que permitan la evacuación de toda la potencia que se va a generar
dismantled
en la zona.
the whole industrial estate
Más
O
preguntas.
sea, en este
to be
caso en
able
concreto es uno
to
de los
focus
casos
on the
de,
energy
de los
needs of
casos,
the
digamos,
area.
de las raras avis en las
So
que
in this
se ha tenido en
specific
cuenta
example,
el incremento de la infraestructura de distribución.
they have taken into account the required increase in distribution infrastructure. The interpreters can't hear the
La
question.
tercera pregunta era, ¿dónde estaba? Ahí, arriba.
So the third question over here.
Buenas tardes, ha sido un placer el día de hoy.
Good afternoon.
Bueno, en
It's
las
been a real
charlas
pleasure
ha salido expuesta
to have listened to all of the
imagen mía
presentations today.
del 2014, que era el ensanche de la refinería que salió en prensa, ¿no?
One of
Ese
my
ensanche de la
images from
refinería que sale en
2014
prensa,
came up. That was
básicamente
the
es un boceto,
extension
una
of the
intención muy
refinery,
clara,
an image
muy
that
clara, de
appeared
saber
in the
leer la
press. The
ciudad
goal of
existente
this
y el cómo crecer.
sketch
Yo pensaba que era las ciudades de
was
los parques y
to
ramblas
be
que
able
llega al mar,
to
que
see how the
incorpora la
city
rambla,
could grow,
y a través de un ensanche que puse de ejemplo, como el de
incorporating the
Barcelona, que es un
Rambla.
ensanche histórico y muy
And
estudiado
I
entre los
gave the
arquitectos,
example of the
éramos capaces de
Barcelona
estructurar la
extension,
ciudad
which
y
is
que
a
sea un
very historical
elemento
example. It's been studied
de
by lots of
coser la malla.
architects, and it's
Tenemos
given
un
that
problema
city an
muy
opportunity to give a
gordo en la
structure
ciudad existente,
and
ya lo
to
han hablado
build
varios ponentes,
a network
que está
around
muy
it. We have a
desestructurada,
big
que es el elemento
problem
a afrontar,
here right now.
así como
It's
la
been
regeneración urbana y el
mentioned
elemento de la
many
refinería, que lo
times,
estamos aquí hablando con
and
varios
that
compañeros
is
también arquitectos, no pueden hacer como un solo elemento
how
aislado,
to
sino un elemento
address this
central,
space
estructurador
occupied
y que
by the
valga
refinery.
para
We mustn't
realmente
look at it as
regenerar
an
esa
isolated
malla
plot of
urbana
land.
global de
Rather,
la
we need
ciudad.
to look at it as an
Con una visión
opportunity
larga,
to
aunque cueste décadas
renovate the
de leerlo,
whole city
pero
network.
es algo que hay que tomarse muy, muy en serio. Y ahí entra la movilidad,
It's
entran
hard to
muchos factores,
envisage, but it's
la
something
costa
that
como
we
elemento
must ensure
articulador
happens,
verde
and this
y
requires,
poco
of
más.
course, a
Yo
focus on
darle las gracias a
mobility,
todos y que comparto básicamente mucho de lo que he visto hoy.
great
Gracias.
attention to the coastline. And, well, thank
no,
you
de
for all
pregunta,
of
¿no?
your contributions
La-
today.
La pregunta principalmente...
Pregunta, ¿no?
I don't think you
José
had a
María, que
question.
hablé antes con
Yes,
él.
my question is to Jose Maria. I spoke
Ya
to him
señor
earlier.
Vergara, que también he hablado
Well,
con
if
él
you've already
y-
spoken to him and
y
you
pues
have
nada.
your
¿Ya te han
answer,
contestado?
Sí, gracias.
Sí, bueno. Vamos.
so
La
your
siguiente, ¿quién
question
tenía?
has already been answered. Perfect.
Bueno, una más nos quedaba. No, porque si no le damos la
Any
palabra al
more
alcalde,
questions? I think
que
we had
nos está
one more.
acompañando para
And
que
if
concluya. ¿No hay más
not,
preguntas?
then we will give the floor
No.
to the mayor.
Pues alcalde, si es usted
Once
tan
again,
amable,
no more questions then.
muchísimas gracias a todos los ponentes, de
Okay,
verdad.
well, Mayor, please take the floor again. Thank you very much to all of our speakers.